Hi, my name is Nixie Royd. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing a book review. If you are new to my channel or just new to me, I am a Sea Dragon VTuber, and part of being a VTuber, okay, just over again. Hi, my name is Nixie Royd. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing a book review on the House of Night series by PC Cast and Kristin Cast. If you're new to me or new to my channel, part of me being a dragon is that I have quite the hoard / collection of things, and that definitely includes books. And so I wanted to start doing book reviews because I am a fairly avid reader. And I wanted to start with a book series that I remembered being good when I was a teen. And I can say as an adult who is no longer the target audience that perhaps teenage me was not cooking. But with that, let's get over to the book review. Okay, so as I said before, we're going to be reviewing the House of Night series. Again, it's written by PC Cast and Kristin Cast. And I'm going to be starting off this review with just a short disclaimer. I want to hide my mouse. Yeah, we're going to be starting off this book review with a short disclaimer, and that is, I didn't enjoy this book series. That's not to say that anybody who did enjoy this book series or who actively does is wrong, or that I think they don't have taste or whatever. Like, I like what you like, dislike what you dislike. Just for me personally, going back and revisiting the series, I realized I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to. And I do want to do an honest book review, and so it would be disingenuous of me to try to hype up this book series from like 13-year-old me's perspective instead of 26-year-old me's perspective. With that being said, I ask that nobody send any hate to myself, to anybody in the comments who has a differing opinion from you, and definitely not to the authors of this book series. It is what it is. This book series is what it is. At the end of the day, PC Cast and Kristin Cast are both New York Times bestselling authors, and I am a silly internet persona. So, like, they win. But other than that, I just want to have a good time with this book review, and I do encourage debate in my comments about what is good about this book, what might be bad about this book series, and overall just like things that we think could be better. Because I did enjoy some parts of this book series, and again, younger me did enjoy it a lot when I was the target audience for the book series, but no longer the target audience, so I keep that in mind as I'm talking about this stuff. With that, we're going to start with getting a brief introduction to each character, and then I'm going to get into the plot. So, again, I gave my disclaimer, I didn't enjoy this series, so if you don't want spoilers, that's it. That's all you need to know. I didn't enjoy this book series. If you are looking to avoid spoilers, now is the time to click off. Thank you so much for your time for watching. Come back after you've read the book series if that's something you would like. Yeah. On to the characters. So, first and foremost, we have Zoe Redbird, nee Montgomery. This is our main character, and she is like other girls. I cannot stress that enough. She is a normal teenager. So, yeah, she's like the other girls, but the things that make her different as far as main characters go is that she has a connection to the 5 elements, which are air, water, fire, and earth, and spirit. She is the avatar of fledgling vampires. Throughout the book, she starts off at 16, and then she does have her 17th birthday in the book. And the last thing that makes her stand a little bit from all the other characters is that she doesn't curse. So if she was to say bullshit, she says bull poopy, not bull poop, not bull crap, bull poopy. And that certainly is a choice that was made for this book series. So that's kind of like the things. I also forgot to mention that I pulled every image either from Google Images or from the official House of Night Wikipedia. And so any picture done in this specific art style behind me, that is from the House of Night comic book that I did not read, but I believe it was produced by Dark Horse Comics. So if you were interested in that. This is Grandma Sylvia Redbird. She is Zoe's grandma, and she is a Giqua woman, which is a Cherokee's wise woman. She's somewhere in her 60s. There's no official picture of her, so I pulled an image from Google Images of a elderly Cherokee woman, and she very much falls into the trope of the mystical Native American person. That's another thing that we will discuss at the end of this video. Then we have Linda Heffer. She's Zoe's mom. She's kind of in a semi-abusive relationship with a fundamental Christian guy. She's in her 40s, and I believe she is half Cherokee. Again, no official picture for her, so Google image half Cherokee mom. Now we have Stevie Ray Johnson. This is Zoe's BFF and roommate when she gets to the house at night. Stevie Ray is 17. She is very much like the human personification of Applejack from My Little Pony, if you're familiar with that series. But just total country bumpkin, and her connection as far as like magical powers go is that she is connected to the earth elements. Now we have Damien Maslin. He's part of Zoe's group. He's gay. He's 17, and his special interests are vocab and interior design, and his magical powers revolve around the air element. And I cannot stress to you enough, he is gay. He is so gay. Like, that's his character type. He's so gay. He's the gayest of gays. Then there's Erin Bates. Also part of Zoe's group. She's 17 to 18. Her element is the water element, and she is considered one half of the, quote, twins. And the twins are very Bratz doll-esque. They just kind of care about fashion and boys and fashion. So that's about it. Now we have Shawnee Cole. She's, again, part of Zoe's group. She is 18. Her element is the fire element. She is the other half of the twins. And she is Bratz-esque, but with a little bit more empathy than her counterpart, Erin. She's also the only black person that is like a main character from the start of the book series through the end. So I guess a point for diversity there. Now we have Jack Twist, also part of Zoe's friend group. He is 15 to 16, but he is gay, but flamboyantly gay, where Damien is a little bit more reserved, and he is Damien's boyfriend. And that's it. He's a golden retriever, little gay boy, and I love that for him. Next, we have Aphrodite Lafont. She's just a rich bitch. Think Mean Girls, Heathers, like she is that bitch. Her special magical power is that she has visions of the future or potential futures, and she kind of becomes an enemy. She starts off as an enemy and then becomes a friend as the book series progresses. So now we have Kramisha. So Kramisha is a future poet laureate / prophetess. You'll notice that her tattoo marking is red instead of blue. That we will explain later, but she is the only black-red fledgling that is mentioned. And she is stereotyped pretty heavily as, like, a, quote, ghetto black person. Like, I don't, there's no, like, good way to say that other than just, like, the way that the authors chose to write her dialogue and her accent in her dialogue, is a choice, and there are certainly real people in this world who have dialogue like that, but it is kind of uncomfortable when it's standalone, and it is a little jarring. I don't know, like, she just feels like a racist stereotype of a black girl, like a young black teen. I don't have an age range for her. really all that we know about. Like, she very much is a plot point. She just, like, gets poems in her head that hold the keys to the future, and that's kind of it. So, good for you, Cramisha. That's all we really know. Next, there's Darius. He's 88. He does become Aphrodite's boyfriend. He is a warrior of Erebus, and he is muscles. He's muscles. All the muscles. All of them. Then there is Lenobia. She is 240 years old. She is the equine studies professor, so she teaches horses. And she does become Zoe's eventual mentor, so it's kind of important there. She's cool. We like Lenobia. Then there's Heath Luck. He's human. He stays human. He is Zoe's on and off again boyfriend. He's 18. He's a stereotypical high school quarterback, and he is also an alcoholic. Like, this boy apparently throws down beers after school on the regular and gets drunk on the regular. It's kind of a problem. And so that needed to be noted as well. Then we have Eric Knight. He is 19. He does become one of Zoe's boyfriends when they are both fledglings. He has a acting gift, so it's not really like a superpower, but it's noted as like part of his character archetype. He's just really good at acting. He is the hottest piece of ass at that school. And he's also a very jealous idiot when it comes to people he's in relationships with. So that's something. He's very possessive. Possessive is a good word for him. Then there's Professor Lauren Blake, who's 24-ish. He is the official poet laureate at the Tulsa House of Night, and I just wanted to include his official interests from the House of Night Wikipedia, which is poetry and sleeping with a minor. And we will cover that, because it's icky. It's so icky. Then we have James Stark, who is 18 and becomes Zoe's eventual boyfriend. He's also Zoe's sworn warrior of Erebus, and he has a gift for archery where he literally cannot miss. And he has a dog named Duchess. Ownership of Duchess becomes kind of foggy at some point, but he also becomes a red fledgling. As you see, his markings are red. Now we have Kelowna. Kelowna is an immortal god. He's supposed to be the brother of Erebus. He was kicked out of the other world, which is like Nyx's realm of the afterlife. Then apparently he raped a lot of Cherokee women in his like lore story, and then birthed the Raven Mockers, and we'll kind of get into that. And for a while he does lust after Zoe. So that's fun. Then there is Rephaim, who there is no picture for. Google Images did in fact fail me, but he is the son of Kelowna, and he is half raven, half man. A lot of times the Raven Mockers are depicted as more raven than man, but just think like dude body, raven head, you got it. He is semi-immortal and Stevie Ray's eventual boyfriend. Now we have Neferet. Neferet is our main villain. She is the head prophetess at the Tulsa House of Night. She is 136 years old, and she has an affinity for both healing and mind reading. It kind of talks specifically about cats for a little bit, but mind reading in general, but also like just an affinity for reading cats' minds. Unclear about that. Eventually she will start calling herself the Queen the Queen to see Skili. I did try my best to look up a lot of the Cherokee words that were used in this book series. I'm not good at word pronunciation. We also have Oryx. He is made by Neferet and Darkness. He does get Heath's soul in him. Spoiler alert, Heath dies. And he can essentially transform into a minotaur. And his whole thing is just he's a fish out of water. So, like, that's his shtick. He doesn't know anything about anything because baby boy's like days old when we meet him. And that's the characters. We end with Oryx, and now we're going to get into the actual books. And I have somewhere between 1 to like 4 or 5 slides per book. It really gets, the slides get longer with each book, essentially. I did my best just to hit the key plot points. This is going to be a very long review of just the literary plot points. So if you just want to skip ahead through all of that to get my final thoughts, then you can go to the timestamp on the screen right now. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy my best shot at remembering all 12 books via PowerPoint. So first we start with Marked, which did come out in 2007. We start off with Zoe at her high school. She is marked by what's called a tracker. She does go home. Her mom freaks out because they're like super religious. And so Zoe runs away and she goes to her grandma's house before she goes to the house at night. However, while she's when she shows up, her grandma's out at the lavender field that her grandma owns. And so she had left a note for Zoe because, again, she is like the mythical Cherokee wise woman and just knows when people are going to come to her house. So she left a note for Zoe. And so Zoe goes to try to find her, and Zoe passes out and hits her head and meets Nyx. While she is meeting Nyx, she then gets blessed by Nyx so that she could be Nyx's eyes and ears in the mortal realm. When she wakes up, Neferet is there, and she goes to the House of Night. At the House of Night, she meets what's called the Nerd Herd, which is her main group of friends. That's Stevie Ray, Damien, Aaron, Shawnee. And then it'll grow as new characters are introduced. She also meets Aphrodite, who tried to force a blowjob onto Eric Knight because they were broken up, but Aphrodite also really wanted to blow him. I don't know. Anyways, Aphrodite is forced to invite Zoe to the Dark Daughters rituals. The first one freaks Zoe out because Aphrodite put blood into the wine that they drink. And Zoe really liked it, so that freaked her out, and she runs off, runs into her ex-boyfriend Heath. She then drinks a little bit of his blood, and then, because he's drunk and fucking cut his hand and is stupid, but she gets used to being different, as she also realizes that she has an affinity for all 5 elements with the different full moon rituals that happen at the House of Night. Through this, Neferet really convinces her to continue to go to the Dark Daughters rituals because it is important for her to recognize that she will be a future prophetess. So Zoe continues to go and is invited to the Samhain ritual. Now, at the Samhain ritual, things go wrong. Aphrodite does not call for good spirits. She also does not cleanse the area. And so a lot of malicious spirits came forth when Aphrodite called on any spirit to join in on their circle. Thankfully, Zoe and her circle, aka the Nerd Herd, realized that this was likely to happen. And so Zoe and her group pre-planned for them to sneak out of the school, because this was done off school grounds, and to take care of fixing things, where they do call a circle, and they do fix it, and Zoe is given the title of the new leader of the Dark Daughters. I also want to note that Heath is drunk on Halloween and shows up to the ritual and gets kind of fucked up by some ghosts. So, Heath is my personal enemy. I hate him. Then we have Betrayed, which also came out in 2007. So, in Betrayed, we start off with Zoe beginning to reorganize the Dark Daughters. Set new rules because she wants it to be more like a proper student council and less like a popular clique. She also finds out that Aphrodite's visions are no longer valid, at least according to Neferet, and Zoe also finds out that Aphrodite has been hiding visions from Neferet. It is important to note that during all of this, several human football players from the local area have gone missing, and Zoe knows at least a couple of them from going to parties with Heath. Zoe does prep and leads her first circle, and each of the Nerd Herd members finds out that they also have an element. It is also during this first circle of the Dark Daughters that Stevie Ray dies. Gosh darn it. Her body rejects the mark and the change that fledglings undergo for vampirism, and so she does die. She gets very sick very rapidly and passes. This then makes Zoe very distraught, and Heath also ends up going missing. Wow, who would have thought that? So, but thanks to Zoe drinking Heath's blood and forming an imprint with Heath because of the little bit of blood she drank, she is able to find Heath and a bunch of the, quote, dead fledglings who now have red outlines of crescent moons, where their blue outlines had been. So that's kind of weird. So Zoe does end up saving Heath from the red fledglings, and Neferet finds Zoe and attempts to erase Zoe's memories. Suspicious. That's kind of it ends there. They end with Neferet trying to erase Zoe's memories. And so then we go into Chosen, which came out in 2008. And we open the book with Zoe hurting her friends by not telling them that she doesn't like Christmas or winter-themed stuff for her birthday because she was born on Christmas Eve. So she's never liked winter-themed stuff for her birthday. And her friends are hurt, including Eric, who she has kind of started to date. They're all hurt because Zoe did not get a chance to tell them in all the craziness and the month that she's been at school that she doesn't like it, just that what her birthday is. So they all get really butthurt and angry at her, which is just fucking weird. She does leave the school to kind of cool down, and while she's cooling down away from her friends, she finds Stevie Ray drinking a homeless person's blood, and they do agree to meet up later. Zoe tells Aphrodite about this because Aphrodite's had visions about Stevie Ray, and Aphrodite ends up helping to sneak Stevie Ray into Aphrodite's parents' house because her parents are super rich and will never check the area that they put Stevie Ray in. Aphrodite and Zoe also discuss Neferet being secretly evil and Neferet knowing about the red fledglings and possibly being the reason why they exist, being part of her evil plan for something. Aphrodite and Zoe becoming closer does hurt Zoe's friendship with the rest of her friends and damages her relationship with Eric a lot because Aphrodite is Eric's ex. This is also where the drama professor, Nolan Blake, comes in. I'm sorry. Nolan Blake isn't the drama professor yet. He will become the drama professor because the old drama professor is dead. He's found dead outside with a note that references the Bible as an attempt to cause tension between Christians and the vampire world. And because of all the crazy stuff that's just going on in Zoe's life, she does attempt to break up with Heath fully and break their imprint, and instead Heath corners her in her little Volkswagen Bug and is like, please drink my blood, babe, please. And she gives in to drinking his blood because apparently she doesn't really have any impulse control around blood, and thus their imprint is even stronger. Zoe does her second Dark Daughters ritual after all of this. She has not told Eric about the stronger imprint. And during the second ritual, Eric completes the change. He now becomes a full-blooded vampire. Though the change can be painful and looks similar on the outside to a fledgling rejecting the change, and so it really freaked Zoe out, and Nolan Blake is there to comfort her. Everybody leaves the room while Nolan comforts Zoe to calm her down, and Eric is escorted to, like, the hospital wing or whatever to make sure that the change goes smoothly and gets, like, inducted into the super secret vampire ceremony. So while Nolan has Zoe alone, he gets her to drink his blood, and then he drinks her blood, and they have sex according to the book. In my mind, this is just rape. This is statutory rape of a emotionally vulnerable teenage girl by a grown man. Because she is 17 and he is 24. I just want to sit on. She is freshly 17 and he is 24. And if you don't see the problem with a 7-year age gap, I believe, like, brother, disgusting. Anyways, because they drink each other's blood, this does break the imprint that Zoe has with Heath, and it's actually really painful because she can feel Heath's betrayal through their imprint bond. Eric also walks in on them doing the do, and storms off. Because, he doesn't stop to think about it potentially being rape, because it looks like Zoe's enjoying it. Anyways, Zoe had made a plan for Stevie Ray to come to the school to expose the red fledglings and expose Neferet, and so she runs off to go meet Stevie Ray, but her circle is already there, and now they have absolutely zero trust in her because she clearly knew about Stevie Ray and didn't tell any of them. But they at least agree to do one more circle with Aphrodite stepping in as Earth, because Stevie Ray no longer has the affinity and Aphrodite did gain the affinity. But Stevie Ray ends up attacking Aphrodite during the circle, but she does complete the change to become a full red vampire instead of a red fledgling. And that's cool. She's the first red vampire. That's great. She gets her Earth element back. Everybody's kind of happy that Stevie Ray's good. And then Eric shows up and tells everybody about him walking in on Zoe and Nolan doing the do. And then everybody gets really angry again and just kind of says, fuck you, Zoe. Because Eric stirs the shit pot a lot. So then we get to Untamed, which came out in 2008. In this book, Zoe meets James Stark, an infamous archer fledgling who transferred to Tulsa. Zoe, Stevie Ray, and Aphrodite meet up and discuss how Stevie Ray is back to her normal self with just a few changes because there are differences between red vampires and blue vampires, with the red vampires being kind of your more classic, can't be out in the sun, it will burn them alive, needing to be... They kind of vaguely mention needing to be invited in. It doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. But she also has like powers to persuade people more than a blue vampire would ever be able to, and just a handful of other things that are a little bit more classic vampire mythos. Aphrodite also tells Zoe about 2 visions she has where Zoe dies and the world is plunged into darkness. The circumstances of each vision are slightly different, but the end result is the same. Eventually, everybody in the friend group meets up. Zoe's able to apologize, and Aphrodite explains that both Zoe and Aphrodite are pretty much immune to mind reading, and so that's part of the secrecy that they've had, is because Neferet really good at mind reading, and the rest of the group, not prepared to block her. So, they do try to cast a new circle, but it's very clear that Aphrodite no longer has the Earth affinity. And then Nyx does appear to the circle and explains that Aphrodite was just safekeeping Earth for Stevie Ray. At some point, though, the head vampire, Shekinah, who is at the House of Night Council meetings, she literally is like the head vampire of all vampires, specifically comes to their House of Night, and she rejects Neferet's declaration of war. Eric is called back to teach drama at the Tulsa House of Night instead of going to LA, where he thought he would be upon becoming a full vampire. And we meet Detective Marks, who is a human detective, and he's just put in charge of investigating the vampire deaths at the school. Stark then explains to Zoe that he could never miss a target ever, and how he killed his mentor in a competition. And then immediately he dies because his body rejects the change, and Zoe informs him while he's coughing up blood in her arms about the red vampires, and that he most likely will come back. Zoe, Aphrodite, and Darius then start working on a community outreach project that Zoe wants to do with the Dark Daughters. There they meet the Benedictine nuns that exist in Tulsa, and specifically Sister Mary Angela. I did not mention her in the character lineup, but she is a semi-recurring character. All you need to know is that, she's the head nun, okay? And the nuns are cool with the vampires because they see Nyx as another version of the Virgin Mary. Anyways, they go out to eat lunch, and Zoe runs into Heath again. And Heath tells Zoe he's done loving her because it hurts too much. Zoe then goes back to the school, and they go back to their classes, where Eric is teaching drama class and tries to embarrass Zoe by making her play Desdemona to his Othello. I'm sure this has some significant meaning. However, somebody who's never read Othello, I don't know. But they do a scene, and it hurts Zoe so much, because there's a lot of passion from Eric about the betrayal that he feels. Aphrodite also gets a vision of Grandma Redbird and writes a poem as warning. The first thing being that Kelowna will rise with the help of the Queen to seize Gili, and that Grandma Redbird also then warns them about the Raven Mockers. So she tells the story about how Kelowna fell to earth, and that he raped a lot of Cherokee women, and thus birthed the Raven Mockers, and Zoe has also been hearing ravens throughout kind of the school grounds, which is suspicious. After Grandma tells them about all of this, Zoe is then attacked by several Raven Mockers, and she calls on Damien and Air to save her, and it works! Yay! Zoe goes to Shekinah to inform her about this whole poem prophecy thing, but she does overhear Neferet trying to twist everything that's been going on at the House of Night to be Zoe's fault. Grandma Redbird is invited to stay in Zoe and Stevie Ray's room because of several prophecies regarding Grandma's safety. And while Zoe is explaining this to Grandma, they find a Raven Mocker listening in on them, and Grandma uses this crushed blue dust. I believe it's supposed to be turquoise. I don't remember fully, but it does send the Raven Mocker away. Zoe wakes up the next day with a bad feeling, as Grandma Redbird was in a car crash, and Zoe and Aphrodite rush to the Catholic hospital that Grandma's being treated at. Zoe does try to request that a medicine man come to protect Grandma Redbird's spirit. However, she is refused because it's a Catholic church. So instead, she asks if Sister Mary Angela could come watch over Grandma Redbird instead, and Sister Mary Angela agrees. Zoe then takes some time to do a cleansing ritual, and she tries to introduce the red vampires to the whole school. During this, though, it backfires, as things tend to, because Neferet had a feeling this was going to happen, and so she brings Stark out in front of Shekinah and the whole school, and is like, this must have been Zoe's doing. Look, she knows. This must have been her doing. I just found Stark like this in the morgue. And so she twists all this, and in this chaos, she orders that Stark shoot Stevie Ray. And by shooting Stevie Ray, the blood spilled from Stevie Ray frees Kelowna from the earth, where he had been trapped. Neferet then also kills Shekinah because she's seen too much clearly, and is just not believing of Neferet and her lies that Kelowna is Erebus reborn, or that Neferet is Nyx reborn on Earth. And while she kills Shekinah, the rest of the nerd herd all run and escape to the depot tunnels that the Red Fledglings had been hiding in. So then we get to Hunted, 2009. Woo! Darius helps to remove the arrow from Stevie Ray, but in doing so, she's lost a lot of blood. She kind of goes into this frenzy state, and she drinks directly from Aphrodite, causing an imprint to form between those two. Eric and Zoe do make up, but then he gets really, pushy and aggressive with her, and doesn't stop, kissing her and kind of hurts her. So that's kind of really weird and unfortunate. Cramisha is voted the poet laureate of the group, as she, shows them a bunch of different poems she's wrote that are all essentially prophecies of things that have happened or are going to happen. Zoe, then everybody, goes to sleep, and Zoe has a dream about Kelowna where he calls her Aya, and it shatters when she calls out for Nyx. And then Heath shows up to the tunnels and insists on talking with Zoe, and during their talk, a Ravenmocker attacks, and Zoe does kill it with air and fire, but she is hurt from this Ravenmocker because she's trying to protect Heath. Eric runs, and he helps carry Zoe to Darius, because Darius is, the only adult vampire besides Eric, and Darius essentially is like, Zoe needs to drink, fresh human blood, and the only human we got right now is Heath, and it's probably the best blood she'll ever get because they had a previous imprint, and so she drinks from Heath, and they re-imprint. Zoe is then forced to return to the House of Night to fully recover from the blood loss, because if she's not around way more adult vampires than she's currently around, she probably will reject the change and die. Neferet has convinced the whole school in the night that everybody's gone that Kelowna's Erebus, as I said before, and she's basically gotten the whole school to abandon Nyx in favor of worshipping herself, Neferet. Zoe convinces Stark, however, to become her oath-sworn warrior. Keep in mind that before this conversation happens, Stark was seen basically convincing different girls at the school to let him sleep with them in the maybe week that they're gone. The timeline on this is a little unclear, if they're gone for just a night or two, if they're gone for a week, but long enough for Stark to become the top G at the school and essentially coerce people, aka rape people. There's a lot of rape in this book series, but to have sex with them. So yeah, but Zoe sees the good in him and is like, you should become my Oathsworn warrior. You were different before. I know you can go back to being that good person. He takes it to heart, and he does become her Oathsworn warrior, and in doing so, he completes the change to become the second red vampire. Then the group all discuss the poems that Cramisha has written, and some of the ones that Aphrodite has received in her visions with Lenobia, and they come up with a plan. They set a fire to the school as a distraction, and they flee on horseback to the Benedictine Abbey, where the Benedictine nuns are. Kelowna, Neferet, and Stark do give chase through a huge winter storm that has shut down all of Tulsa. And once they arrive, Zoe casts a special circle and is able to banish Nefret and Kelowna. And so this circle, instead of being the usual elements, instead it is night, blood, humanity, earth, and spirit. And like one of the, Sister Mary Ann or whatever her name is, she's in the circle. Grandma Redbird's in the circle. Zoe's in the, or not Zoe, Stevie Ray's in the circle, and somebody else. Like it's a lot. Anyways, I forgot to mention this, but Zoe's special because not only is her outline of her crescent moon filled in, which is usually the mark of a full-fledged vampire, but she has like all the filigree tattoo markings that vampires get, but hers have like already started to like spread down her arms and her back, so she's like super marked. And the marks continue to spread, and she mourns the loss of Kelowna, who she just banished, because she has a connection to Aya. So there's this whole story of Aya, and we're about to get on it. Because now we're at Tempted, the 2009 book. So Zoe's exhausted after casting the circle, and Stevie Ray, being a good friend, steps up and manages to gather everybody and gets them to, start the cleanup efforts, do one last patrol, and then head to bed. While Stevie Ray's doing that, Grandma Redbird takes Zoe aside and explains the story of Aya, which Aya, from my understanding, is the Cherokee word for me. However, in the book series, they call it the Cherokee word for beautiful. So take that with a grain of salt. My research says it's the word for me. But you do you. This is not a real Cherokee story. This is made up entirely for the book. But she explains what it means for Zoe and her connection to Kelowna, which is basically Kelowna fell to the earth and started raping women, and they started having these horrible demon-esque children called the Ravenmakers that are half man, half raven. And so a bunch of Cherokee wise women gathered themselves together and used clay and a bunch of different skills. So they used clay to form this shell of a woman, and then one of them is really good at like leather making or tan hiding, and one of them is really good at beading, and they make this really beautiful clay doll, and then together they breathe life into the doll and name her Aya. And Aya is used essentially as a honeypot trap for Kelowna, where she convinces Kelowna, come after me. Like she runs, she's given like fast speed or something, and so she runs from Kelowna into a cave where once he finally has her, she agrees to love him, and then the cave is like filled in with dirt, trapping Kelowna under earth because he's a creature from the sky, and so he's weakest underground. That's basically the whole story, okay? So that's what happened to Kelowna canonically in this book. It is not a real Cherokee story as far as I can tell, so just, again, grain of salt stuff here. But so Zoe is basically a reincarnation of Aya. Part of her soul is one of the pieces of her soul is Aya. So she's just a reincarnation of this mythological woman. So she gets to learn about that, and that explains why she feels like connected to Kelowna, why he's able to enter her dreams, blah, 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 blah. Eric then tries to demand some alone time with Zoe, and Zoe gets really fed up with him, and she dumps him for being too jealous and controlling, aka possessive. Zoe then goes to bed, and she continues to have dreams with Kelowna until Stark senses that she's upset because he's her oath-sworn warrior and goes in to protect her. Because Kelowna cannot enter the dreams of women if there's like a man in the same room for some reason. So that's what happens there. Aphrodite then goes to a different room, taking Xerius with her because Zoe and Aphrodite were sharing a room. And so it's there in the private room with Darius that she realizes that she's in love with Darius, and he decides to become her oathbound warrior, part of a way to soothe her and to prove that he also loves her. I also have the ick with him being 88 and her being in like her 20s, but this book has a lot of weird relationships, so. Stevie Ray, during all of this, finds a very injured Ravenmocker named Refame, and she begins to help heal him and also hide him from everybody. Because if they were to find any alive Ravenmockers, the rest of the group would just kill them. And Stevie Ray feels a sense of humanity with Refame and a connection to him. So after spending the night at the Abbey, the group then makes their way back to the House of Night, where they find another dead professor and her husband grieving. The dreams do continue, as well as prophecies. Kelowna keeps being there. The prophecies continue from both Aphrodite and Cremisia, and eventually they find out that Neferet is now on the Isle of San Clemente in Italy, talking with the Vampire High Council, and she's there with Kelowna, where Neferet is claiming to be Nyx incarnate and Kelowna to be Erebus incarnate. So the group gets on the House of Night's private jet to Venice, minus Stevie Ray, to explain their side to the High Council. And during the time there that the group is on their way to Venice, Refame is discovered by the evil red vampires, and he is used to lure Stevie Ray into a trap. Stevie Ray does get saved with the help of Refame, who she ends up drinking blood of, and she imprints with, and Aphrodite does feel their connection break, because, you can only have one imprint at a time. Heath also ends up eavesdropping on Neferet and Kelowna about some of their evil plans, and Kelowna finds out, and he uses Heath's imprint with Zoe to have Heath call for Zoe, and as soon as she gets there just in time to see Kelowna snap Heath's neck, and in Zoe's panic and desperation to try to save Heath from Kelowna, she gathers up all the spirit that she has available to her, and she throws it at him, and then her soul shatters because Heath is dead. And now we're at Burned, 2010. So this book is kind of confusing. We're going to be going back and forth on perspectives here. All of the books from book 3 through the rest of the series have a lot of perspective changes, but this book has, the worst of it. It's every chapter is a new perspective. So bear with me. So the nerd herd, everybody is trying to figure out how are we gonna fix Zoe's soul, and then in their research, eventually they discover that the Isle of Skiok holds the answers. So Stevie Ray and Refame, out in Tulsa, they make a pact to become friends until either Zoe or Kelowna, who has entered the otherworld, return to their bodies from the otherworld. Because Kelowna did make a deal with Neferet to enter the otherworld in just his spirit, since his body itself was banned from the otherworld, so a technicality. We then cut to Zoe being very confused and lost in the otherworld, but she has Heath by her side, so she's fine. She's fine. Stark finds out that he's descended from one of Queen Skiok's warriors, and so he takes Zoe's body, as well as Aphrodite and Darius with him, and he goes to the Isle of Skiok, and he is thankfully granted entry to meet with the Queen. Stevie Ray in Tulsa recovers from the severe burns that she had, because part of the trap that they used Refame for was to trap Stevie Ray outside in the sun. So she's able to recover fairly quickly because of Refame's blood, because he's part immortal, so it's better blood. And again, like I said, this does break the bond that she has with Aphrodite. Stevie Ray also attempts to solve Cremisia's poem and ends up summoning... In Cremisia's poem, there's 2 bulls. It talks about the white bull and the black bull, but joke's on us! Dear viewer, the white bull is the evil bull, and the black bull is the good bull. So Stevie Ray ends up summoning the white bull. And then we cut back to Zoe in the underworld, or otherworld, and she runs into different parts of her soul, but they all argue about if they should go back to being together or not. That's not happening anytime soon. On the surface, in Ireland, I think... or Scotland, I think Ireland. Stark learns of a special ritual that can be done that would send him to the other world in his soul. A few warriors have tried this ritual, but even less have survived. So, but it's worth the risk for his Zoe. Neferet and Kelowna discover what's happening, and like I said, Kelowna makes an oath with Neferet to enter the other world and prevent Zoe's soul from ending. Dallas shows up, and that's Stevie Ray's kind of boyfriend, kind of ex. So he kind of boyfriend at this time. Dallas shows up to save Stevie Ray, and Stevie Ray then summons the Black Bull, aka the Bull of Goodness and Light, to save Rephaim, who had attacked the evil White Bull, and the Black Bull agrees to do this, but the agreement is that Rephaim's humanity is now tied to Stevie Ray. Dallas finds out he has the power to conduct and affect electricity during all of this. That's so cool. Dallas and Stevie Ray then go run the bad fledglings out of the depot tunnel. They want them away from Tulsa. And while some of the red fledglings die, Dallas and Stevie Ray do the cleanup of it. And Dallas then kisses Stevie Ray, and Rephaim walks in on them. Dallas freaks the fuck out because that's a Raven Mocker. They're supposed to be evil, and Stevie Ray ends up protecting Rephaim. And this stress, apparently, causes Dallas to undergo the change, and during that, he chooses to embrace darkness because the girl he likes a monster. Stark finds Zoe in the underworld after undergoing the ritual, and he tries to convince her to get her soul pieces back together, but it's not doing the trick. Kelowna also then appears shortly after, and Stark goes out to fight him, which does give Zoe the final push she needs to embrace all the different pieces of herself. And as soon as she's kind of done doing that, Stark gets injured, and Zoe calls upon the debt that Kelowna owes her for killing Heath to save Stark. And Kelowna's not going to do it until Nick shows up and goes, "Bitch, you owe this girl a life debt, and I told you you were never to come back to the other world until you figured your shit out. So you're going to pay your debt." So Kelowna pays the debt and saves Stark. Stevie Ray finds out that Dallas never made it back to the House of Night. Stevie Ray and Rephaim then confess their love to each other, and Nyx offers them both a vision of a fully human Rephaim, which gives Stevie Ray a lot of hope. And like I said, Kelowna saves Stark, but he does this by giving Stark a piece of his soul. Nyx then banishes Kelowna again, this time in spirit on top of body. Kelowna, Zoe, and Stark all return to the real world, and Rephaim feels Kelowna's return and admits that he can't leave his father. As much as he loves Stevie Ray, he's loyal to his father. And now we're at Awakened 2011. Zoe and Stark have sex under the wishing tree, bonding them further. Good for them. Finally, an age-appropriate man. On the Isle of Skye, they also find out Zoe can wield old magic, which is cool. She can see little fairy sprites and stuff. Zoe is also very hesitant to leave Skye, and so she stays longer with Stark after Aphrodite and Darius leave, since they were called back to the House of Night to help deal with shit. Neferet ends up returning to Tulsa, and she does use darkness to kill Jack, Damien's boyfriend, because he's that good. He's that pure. So his death and news of it finally causes Zoe and Stark to leave Skye, and they return to Tulsa for his funeral and to help support Damien. Stark is asleep on the plane, and Kelowna is able to enter Stark's mind thanks to the soul sharing thing. And this also is where we find out that this means that the oath Kelowna swore is no longer binding him to Neferet because his soul's not whole. Neferet lets Zoe light the funeral pyre for Jack and apologize in front of everyone, and Zoe's kind of forced to accept this fake-ass apology or look like a petulant child, so she does. Neferet calls Rephaim forward and Stevie Ray and claims the sons of Erebus need to kill them because they work for darkness, and then Kelowna steps in, and Rephaim works to defend himself without significantly harming any of the sons of Erebus, because, like, that's Colonna's favorite son. He's not about to let Rephaim die. And so Stevie Ray begs for a circle to be made to stop the fight, and she begs for Colonna for Rephaim's freedom, which Colonna does give. Dragon Langford, whose wife was killed at some point by Rephaim, I believe, uses this distraction to try to kill Rephaim in a form of a vengeance to his wife, but he is stopped by Zoe, and Nyx appears, and she gives Rephaim a human body during the nighttime hours where all the vampires are awake, and a raven body during the daytime hours. Nyx also then pleads to both Damien and Dragon to move on from their lost loves, to find comfort that they're in the other world with Nyx, and that one day they will be reunited. Rephaim offers his services in atonement to Dragon, but he's rejected, and the Nerd Herd and the good red vampires leave the campus to move into the depot tunnels underground to sleep when they're not in class. At some point, they plan to start their own House of Night separated from the Tulsa one. This doesn't really go anywhere. Then we get another point of view change, Neferet, who plans to kill Grandma Redbird as a sacrifice for the White Bull, aka the Evil Bull. However, Zoe's grandma's not home, and instead Zoe's mom is, and so she's killed instead as a sacrifice, which her death then creates a vessel for darkness. However, this vessel of darkness is able to be manipulated by Nyx, which is where Heath's soul gets implanted into Oryx, the vessel of darkness, because Zoe's mom is not as powerful as Grandma Redbird is, so her sacrifice is not as powerful. I don't know, man. So yeah, Heath is then, he's given a choice by Nyx, and he chooses to go protect Zoe, even though he's not going to have any of his memories when he's implanted into Oryx. Zoe and Stark were getting hot and heavy when Stark becomes very aggressive, and Zoe basically has to fight to get him to stop, and I think this is supposed to be Colonna controlling Stark. Again, this whole, like, soul-sharing thing, it, like, kind of starts to go somewhere, and then it doesn't really go anywhere. It kind of gets forgotten about. But Zoe's able to stop him, and Stark apologizes, and they go to sleep, and Zoe is able to see a vision of her mother entering the other world and being greeted by Nyx, so she's aware that her mom is dead. Gonzo. So then we get to Destin, which came out in 2011. I need to point out that this book, according to, like, Wikipedia, is told from no less than 11 points of view. Okay? I need people to understand that, like, I'm cool with point of view changes. I'm cool with it. It's fine. But Jesus Christ, 11. 11's a lot. 11's a lot to try to keep track of in a book review. Anyways, Zoe notices darkness around Stark, and she's a spirit to get it away from him. Arx kills a security guard, and Neferet plans to use him to kill the White Bull at some point. Arx, by the way, kills the security guard on behalf of Neferet because she orders it. Zoe then initiates a meeting with Dantia, the new head of all the vampires, and recounts her side of the previous book before she requests two things. One, that Rephaim be accepted at the Tulsa House of Night, and two, that they be allowed to make a new House of Night in the underground tunnels. Dantia is cool with Rephaim going to the House of Night. However, the new House of Night thing, that's like something that the whole council has to get together and decide if they're going to allow. Rephaim, while he's like waiting for this meeting to end, is greeted by three of his brothers who Colonna sent to, like, check in on him and see how he's doing and maybe convince him to go back to Colonna's side. Rephaim says, fuck off. Now's not the time. And Oryx shows up and kills one of Rephaim's brothers because Oryx is told to kill all Ravenmockers on sight. Stevie Ray, Rephaim, and Zoe all see Oryx kind of transform into this bull creature, and, like, that's suspicious. Neferet appears, and she calls Oryx her gift from the goddess Nyx, which they all smell as bullshit. Eric goes towards the commotion that is caused by Oryx killing a Ravenmocker, but he is stopped because he suddenly has a compulsion to go track and find a new human to mark as a fledgling, and there he finds Shaylin, a blind girl who he marks, and she ends up with a red crescent moon outline instead of a blue one, so now he's marking red vampires. But she does get her sight healed, so, like, that's cool, I guess. And it's there that they learn that Shaylin has true sight, which means she can see, like, the color of souls. And she's taken back to the House of Night by Eric, which trackers don't usually do this, but he thinks he fucked up. But he also wants to hand her off directly to the Nerd Herd and avoid Neferet. And Neferet happens to be there when he does this. And so Shaylin pretends to faint to avoid talking to Neferet because she doesn't like her vibe. Rephaim is, like, called by his dad again, and he asks Zoe to stand witness to the meeting because he doesn't want Stevie Ray to, like, see him in weakness, I guess. Kelowna forges a truce, though, with Zoe against Neferet, as they now have a common enemy. And so Zoe returns back to her class, only to find out that Thanatos, a member of the Vampire High Council, decided she was going to come to report directly back on the things happening in Tulsa, because a lot of shit is going down in Tulsa. Thanatos can see the darkness around Neferet, and Zoe trusts her with some truths about Neferet, but not all of it. Grandma confirms that Linda is dead, Zoe's mom, and so Thanatos offers to do a revealing and cleansing ritual on her death site, which would just show them exactly how she was killed, because it was a very bloody murder scene. And so then the group has a discussion over the past day of events, multiple days of events, kind of unclear. And it ends up becoming an argument between Shawnee and Aaron, and now the twins have had their own breakup, their own friendship breakup. It's really sad. Shawnee storms off, and then she runs into Kelowna, who's kind of like creeping around and hopes to see Rephaim. And so she gives him her iPhone to contact Rephaim with so they can FaceTime. Then a bunch of prophecies are revealed about the ritual, including Rephaim dying at the hands of Dragon Langford, and so the group tries to plan to stop that. Neferet also learns that the ritual is going to happen, and so she goes to send Oryx to stop the truth from being revealed to Thanatos, because that's going to be a really big problem for her. Oryx kind of hesitates, but he's forced into his bull form by Neferet doing some, like, crazy rituals killing cats, but he is stopped by Dragon, who actually saves Rephaim from getting mauled, so, like, that's cool. And the ritual continues, and everybody learns the truth about Linda's death, aka Neferet murdered her in cold blood to form Oryx. Dragon dies from his injuries, and Rephaim is seriously injured, and Stevie Ray calls for Kelowna, and he pleads for Nyx to save Rephaim, because it's, Rephaim shouldn't have to pay for Kelowna's sins. So Nyx agrees, and Kelowna swears to fight for light again, and so he becomes Thanatos' sworn warrior. Thanatos then takes everybody to the Tulsa House of Night, and Nyx reminds everyone that the fight must continue. So now we get to Hidden, which came out in 2012. So the gang returns to the House of Night, and Neferet is gone. She's outie. She's outie 3000. And Thanatos now knows the truth about Zoe's mom's death, so, like, everybody knows that Neferet is a murderer, essentially. In Neferet's hurry, to get out of the House of Night grounds, she, quote-unquote, accidentally set a fire to the stables. That's so crazy. So when the group returns, it's to a bunch of panic as the flames are being put out by human firefighters, and all of the horses have been let loose onto the school grounds. They also find Lenobia pleading with Travis, who is the human stable hand that Neferet hired to, like, cause some chaos on the school. She's pleading with him to go to the EMTs. Neferet then is later spotted at the local news explaining that she was unjustly fired because she wanted to connect the human and the vampire worlds, and that the vampires were just scared of modernizing. Thanatos and the Nerd Herd deal with the reporters that now show up at the House of Night, both from Neferet's press conference and from the fire. And so then Thanatos decides to set up a press conference of her own. She basically just calls Neferet a disgruntled ex-employee, but explains that Neferet has no ties anymore to the vampire world at all, and that anything negative about vampires from Neferet should be taken with a grain of salt. Aaron and Shawnee continue to grow further apart as the group begins to trust Kelowna, because he did good things, and that's, his actions proved he's changing. So I don't know. That's the basis of their fight. Oryx returns to Grandma Redbird's house, and she gives him a Cherokee name, and I don't remember it, but I probably has something to do with, like, good bull or something, I don't know. But because of this, he begins to make peace with himself, and he tries to find the group to apologize. Zoe's seer stone, however, that she gets from the Isle of Skye, that allows her to find old magic in the world, heats up when Oryx is around, and, like, she finally looks through it and sees what looks like Heath to be where Oryx is standing, and that freaks her the fuck out. Thanatos also takes over the Dark Rituals class that Neferet used to teach, and she does invite Oryx to join the school as a student to atone for harming and killing because she realizes he didn't mean to do it, he was ordered to do it. Neferet then kidnaps Grandma Redbird to try to kill her again for a more perfect vessel. However, Grandma is protected by these turquoise bracelets, and she begins chanting in Cherokee, which freaks out like darkness and makes it harder for it to harm her. And the group figures out that Neferet has Grandma and somehow makes a plan to save her. So they go to the penthouse that Neferet's staying at, and basically Oryx scores Neferet, like, in his bull form. Like, he just runs straight through her and jumps off the balcony, where they fall, and she turns into a million spiders, and Oryx is alive because he was in his bull form when he did this. Wow! They then go back to the school, and they plan a open house event for, like, all the humans in Tulsa and the surrounding area to actually meet the House of Night, and Aaron starts dating Dallas and leaves the group. Like, that's just kind of like a side note thrown in at the end. So then we get to Revealed 2013, and we open with the House of Night being put on pretty smoothly. Even the bad, quote-unquote bad, red fledglings seem to be keeping themselves in check, and Aphrodite's parents show up. Her dad is the mayor, and a bunch of other political figures for Tulsa, and they comment about how, oh, poor Neferet was run out of town by the House of Night. Poor Neferet, poor Neferet. Because, you know, Neferet has basically convinced them that the House of Night is the bad guys and not her. And so that's, you know, and she's missing because her penthouse is empty. She's missing. And the open house would be better if Neferet were there. But she's not. But then she sensed on the campus they thought they killed her, but she did turn into a bunch of spiders. So her, like, presence is sensed, and so Thanatos herds all the humans away to safety, and Zoe and her group decide to cast a circle, and they were about to use somebody else for water, but then Aaron comes in and says that nobody else can be water but her, because it's her affinity. And then Neferet materializes during their circle in, like, a black aura cloud, or as I like to say, a miasma, and she then rushes straight through Aaron. Aaron dies in Shawnee's arms, and Dallas shows up at the last minute, and he swears his vengeance against the group because he thinks it's their fault that Aaron died. Neferet then later fully materializes in the parking lot where she kills Aphrodite's dad, and the whole school is put on lockdown by a bunch of human cops while they investigate who killed the mayor and drained him of his blood, because, you know, vampires. Oryx starts to do a lot of stuff that are way too similar to Heath for Zoe to be comfortable with, including what they say is the Paschetti song, and the book has it written like that, Paschetti, and I just want everybody to know that me reading that and even typing it for this PowerPoint makes me want to die just a little bit. I don't have anything against people that say Paschetti, but there's something about, like, saying Paschetti out loud and then reading it on a page that just, I don't know, gives me an ick. Anyways, Stark starts to get kind of jealous that Zoe keeps seeing Keith and Oryx, and he really just wants to get rid of Oryx. And then all of the good red fledglings, minus Stevie Ray, get moved to the secret basement in the school where Dragon Linkford used to store a bunch of weapons, because they felt that was the safest place for them to be, away from all the bad red fledglings. During this, though, Aphrodite does have a vision of Zoe drinking Oryx's blood and just fucking going crazy, mass destruction, with the help of the Seer Stone, and so that really freaks her out, and she does not tell Zoe. Shawnee stands at Aaron's funeral pyre until dawn, and she makes a bunch of comments about it, and Dallas tries to harass her, but Shawnee really shuts him down and says, like, Erin was my best friend. Even though we weren't on the best terms, she was still my friend, and she deserves somebody to stand over her pyre until the sun rises. So she does that. Stevie Ray then goes to bed, but Dallas breaks in and tries to kill her with electricity powers, and then by trying to expose Stevie Ray to the sun. However, that doesn't work, and Rephaim returns in his little raven form and attacks the shit out of Dallas, scaring him, makes him run off. Shawnee also gets there and tries to help out a little bit where she can, but Dallas is able to escape. However, it's okay, because Stark and Kelowna team up, and they go hunt him down. And then they capture him alive, only for him to be executed in front of the school as a warning to all of the other red vampire fledglings who think that they would like to follow in his behavior of being aggressive and mean. And so only 2 of his followers continue to stand by him even after he's dead. And so Kelowna is ordered by Thanatos to take those kids and drop them off in the middle of bumfuck nowhere where they will die because there's no vampires for them to be near, so their bodies will reject the change a second time. After the execution, Oryx stands in as Earth for Stevie Ray during a cleansing circle, which does work. Oryx also gets help, Zoe gets help from Oryx to go to the cafeteria to go grab some food because she's exhausted, and she does drink a drop of his blood, but then she runs off because she's not comfy. Zoe overhears Aphrodite and Shaylin talking about Zoe's aura, and that also pisses Zoe off, and so she storms off. And while she storms off, she attacks 2 men who try to rob her in the local park, and then she freaks out about what she did because she didn't mean to hurt anybody, and she kind of threw them through the air into trees where they crumpled and passed out. And then she finds out that those 2 guys are dead, and so she confesses to murdering them to the detectives, and so then Zoe is taken into police custody, but while she's there, Neferet massacres a whole church of people and feeds on them, and she lets darkness tendrils feed on them too, which, they explain Neferet can manifest darkness in these snake-like tendrils, so I don't know. And finally we're at Redeemed. I guess I forgot to put the year, but I'm pretty sure this came out in 2013. Neferet does return to her penthouse hotel room, and there she stuffs a tendril of darkness into the the front secretary's mouth, which basically allows Neferet then to control that secretary through the darkness tendril. She then asks that all employees of the hotel and the attached restaurant be brought up to her penthouse, and she takes over some of them, and then she kills anybody who tries to stand up to her against these tendrils going in. And she basically makes everybody that's under her control call her goddess and gather all of the human guests to try to do the same thing. During this time, everybody goes to visit Zoe, who's in jail, and try to figure out why the fuck is she suicidal, because her being away from vampires will get her killed. She explains what happened at the park, and then she's released when everybody finds out that the church was attacked, and the church attack proves that Neferet killed the 2 guys at the park, because they were drained of their blood. But that was never, brought up to Zoe. And so then a bunch of cops go to confront Neferet outside of this hotel that she's staying at. I think they said the Mayo Hotel. And she kills a bunch of cops as well as several hotel guests during this standoff. She then forms this wall of darkness around the hotel, and it basically blocks anybody from entering or leaving without her explicit permission. She then picks out different humans to do different things, and be volunteers for something, and a party organizer that she has taken as hostage, becomes somewhat trusted by Neferet to do Neferet's bidding, because she's I will do anything you want, just please don't shove a black snake tendril in me. And Neferet's fear is a good motivator. That's fine, yeah, you don't need one. So she gets taken hostage by Neferet to do her bidding as well during some of the police shooting, and it's just kind of weird. On the flip side, Thanatos and Shawnee decide that the only thing that they can do to help stop Neferet from killing more people is to invoke an old ritual dating back to Cleopatra's time that uses a protective fire magic-based wall, and they're going to put it around the whole hotel, and the whole nerd herd is taken to a nearby park where they cast a protective circle around Thanatos and the area so that Thanatos can do the other spell that she's casting, and Shawnee is there to help boost the fire magic for Thanatos. Kelowna goes and he tries to distract Neferet during all of this, and he's able to free the party organizer who's been held captive, but she has a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome. But she does tell everybody what Neferet has done to get complete compliance from everybody in the hotel. And then Cramisha has a new prophecy or poem. The news is also actively broadcasting everything, by the way, and it's unclear if this is like a nationwide international broadcast or just local to Tulsa, but it is important to know that this is all being captured on live TV. Aphrodite then gets a vision of Kelowna getting shot and dropping down from the sky, and Nyx specifically tells Aphrodite to tell Kelowna that it is his choice to make. Kelowna goes to stop Neferet from throwing people off the penthouse balcony where she's killing him, and that's when she shoots him in the chest with like a special darkness-infused bullet, and it fucking destroys his whole chest and his back / wings, and so he plummets to the ground, but he's alive long enough to be brought to Thanatos, who helps guide him to the other world, where Nyx reveals to everybody and greets him and shows that he is redeemed and welcomed back to the other world to serve beside Nyx. Thanatos' spell no longer works because of all the stress that's happened, and just her, like, general fatigue settling in. And the fact that she's now lost her Oathsworn Warrior, which, like, causes a lot of pain to her. So she's done. That spell is done. So now everybody has to make a plan to figure out how to stop this from happening, and clearly the Seer Stone is part of this, but Zoe doesn't trust it because she thinks it's part of what made her, like, super aggressive to those guys at the park, and she doesn't want to use the Seer Stone. But Aphrodite swears that she will stop Zoe if Zoe goes crazy. And so they make a very quick plan to lure Neferet to the same park where the two guys were killed. And Zoe then leads Neferet directly into the center of the circle where her friends have been hiding, and they all use their elements to push and seal Neferet into a cave in the park. Yay, they've saved the day. And then there's like an epilogue where it cuts to Nyx and Kelowna looking over everybody and watching them create a new quote-unquote North American Vampire High Council that is a mixture of blue and red vampires as well as humans, and I guess they live happily ever after the end. That's, like, again, I'm not reading any more books besides the Core 12. I'm done with reading the House of Night series. But that's the full synopsis of all 12 books as far as the important stuff goes. Now it's my thoughts. Hi, Editing Nixie here. So I realized after I got to my thoughts while I was editing everything that I didn't do a good job of explaining my dislike of why I dislike this book so much, or the series so much. So I'm going to try to do that again now in a better way. So first and foremost, it's too long. This book series is 12 books. It should be 6 at most. Part of the reason why I think this book series should be 6 at most is because there are too many perspective changes. We change who we're following as a protagonist far too often. Especially once you hit book 4, it is a perspective change at least every 2 to 3 chapters, sometimes every chapter. And that's just a lot to ingest, but not only is it a perspective change as far as character goes, but it is a perspective change when it goes from first person for Zoe to third person for any other character. I don't mind being an omniscient reader. I don't mind doing first person, reading in first person. I don't mind reading in third person. Hell, if somebody made a second person perspective, I'd try it. But like switching between those different perspective types while also switching between characters in one book is a lot to digest as a reader. And it doesn't make a lot of sense when you're just doing it to further the story. It'd be different if you were changing that perspective because, say, like, the main character's a mind reader. So you go from first person in that character's mind to third person because you're experiencing this secondary character's mind through the eyes of the first person. So it does make more sense to be third person in that sense. This book series doesn't have that shit. Okay? It switches a lot. It introduces us to a character who becomes like an assistant to Neferet in the last book. We get her perspective. She didn't exist until maybe the 11th book at best, for sure the 12th book. And I hated it. I dislike that greatly. I think it does a disservice to readers and doesn't follow the rule of show, don't tell. I don't care what Neferet was up to, right? Part of enjoying villains sometimes is not knowing what the hell they were doing and just finding out after they've already done that big action that their smaller actions led to, right? So I just don't think there was payoff there. I also think the ending was really bad. The ending did not pay off for 12 books worth of plot and development. The ending was the entire group hiding in this park, and then as soon as Neferet gets in the middle of their circle, calling on their elements and sealing her away, and it took less than 10 pages after Neferet entered the park to get there. Okay? Less than 10. And then it jumps to an epilogue where, yeah, everybody's happy, they've made the North American Vampire Council, and now, like, life goes on. And, like, that was such a letdown, because you go from Kelowna dying and being reunited with Nyx, which is such an emotional high, to just like, oh, and also we convinced Neferet to come to the park, and then we just sailed her away, and yay, let's save the day. Time to cut to the happy ending. Like, that was some bullshit. I'm sorry, that was a really bad way to end this book series. So I don't think it paid off there either. The other issue I have with this book series, that's kind of a smaller issue, is that it has really dated references and language. It references a lot of old MTV shows like Real Life or Sweet Life or something. The one where Paris Hilton is like living with lower income people to experience what being lower income and medium, like it's kind of a stupid premise, but like where Paris Hilton really got her fame in TV from. It's that like they reference that show, they reference a bunch of other stuff, and I'm not saying that those are bad references. I'm just saying they're very timely references. Somebody who's born in 1999, I am aware of those references just from the zeitgeist that I grew up with and having older siblings and like being connected to those shows through them. However, I've never actually watched those shows before. So I'm not saying that anybody who's watched those shows or grew up with those shows and loved those shows is old, but I am saying it is an older reference that if you, in the year of our Lord 2025, are a younger reader or more of the target audience of teens for this book series and you go to read this series, you're probably not going to understand those references that well. The other thing is the language. They use the R slur a lot. They use the F slur a couple of times, but mainly the R slur. And then they get self-referential about the R slur. And that's like, wow, we get self-referential about that type of stuff. And then we still keep using that word. And I understand that in the late aughts and early 2010s was when the conversation really started to pick up about maybe not using those words because they are harmful, in the same way that we had the Hillary Duff ads of being like, you wouldn't say that's so Ashley, so why would you say that's so gay, or whatever the hell that commercial was about. But like, I think that to be self-referential about that shit and then still use that is bizarre. It's a bizarre choice to make. Finally, I just want to briefly talk about the checking off the boxes of minority groups and including them. I think this book tries to be very inclusive. I think it fails. And here's why. So, PC Cast, the mother of this mother-daughter duo, is the main author for the book series. In fact, she wrote the whole thing. Kristin Cast was actually her editor and happened to be given a writing credit, but did not really write anything for this book series, just edited for her mom. Okay? So keep that in mind. PC Cast, slightly older woman, teen daughter who was in college by the time the series ends. She wrote this book series kind of for her daughter's generation, a little younger. PC Cast is also married to a man with indigenous heritage. So I don't know how he feels about any of this or how aware he was of any of this, nor is it his fault by any means. But I will say, like, Grandma Redbird felt very gimmicky as a character. She was very much the mystic Native American, the indigenous person with special powers because they're indigenous, and spiritual. And, like, I'm not Native American, so I don't want to speak for a group of people that I have no ties to. But what I will say, like, as an outsider looking in and being aware that a lot of the Native American community and indigenous peoples community don't like being included in shit, just because, like, to be the wise man or wise woman and give this, like, mystic third eye knowledge, it's not maybe the best representation that we could have. There are also a couple of African American characters that I don't think are the best representations of African American teens. And I can't really speak to that. While I do have Black family members, I didn't really grow up with them. I did not really grow up immersed in the Black community, so I'm not going to speak on it too much. But I will say, like, I don't think they were just side characters. They were recurring side characters, but I don't think they were given justice either. Finally, there were also a handful of gay characters and 2 lesbian / maybe bisexual characters at the end. And again, like, it just felt gimmicky. Damien was, he was a gay guy, but he wasn't that, like, he wasn't gay, but he was gay. And then, like, I don't know, it just didn't sit well with me, the representation that was present in these books. It was an effort at them, but I don't think it was a good representation of any of those marginalized groups. And so I think it's important to, like, note that. So yeah, it's kind of it. That's kind of all my final thoughts. I don't want to get, like, too into the race thing because I don't think it's my place to speak on it. If you are a part of any of those marginalized groups and have read this book series or want to add your 2 cents, please feel free to. I'm just some girl on the internet who reads books and has a small platform to share my thoughts. So, yeah. Also, like, again, if you are fans of PC, Kristin Cast, or if you know them personally, or if you are them, first off, don't watch my book reviews if you're an author and I read your shit. That makes me uncomfortable. But second of all, like, this isn't me trying to attack the authors by any means. I also recognize this is an older book series. I read it and then I found out actually that there's going to be a adaptation of it either into film or a TV series. They keep mentioning film, but some places are saying a potential TV series instead. I will probably watch it and try to do a comparison of what I think that series looks like if it ever comes out to the books. It does sound like they're going to do some heavy updating on it, and that PC Cast and Kristin Cast are involved in the production of this. But again, I don't know if it's a story that anybody needs or wants. So, I don't know. These are just my thoughts. If you feel differently, if you feel the same, please comment down below. If you've read this book series and it's been a minute, so I just ruined all your nostalgia. I'm so sorry. Please let me know. You can call me a bitch. I don't care. If you have read this book series recently and you agree with me, cool. If you disagree with me, let me know. Again, like, I would love to have an open discussion about this type of stuff. I think I read this book series with a lot of nostalgia that kind of died the more I read it. So, at the end of the day, like I said before, PC Cast and Kristin Cast made it onto the New York Times bestsellers list, and I'm just a girl with a platform, and I like to scream into the void sometimes. So, if you have any book recommendations, don't forget to put those down below. I pay attention to my YouTube comments. I'd be reading them. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. Right now, I am in the middle of listening to the audiobook for the Fourth Wing series. I have thoughts on it. I don't have strong thoughts on it, but I have thoughts on it. The next book review I will be doing will be about the Halfling Saga by Melissa Blair. That I have a lot of praise for. I really enjoyed that series. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, for listening to this. If you were at work or working on a project or anything, I'm so glad that I was the video essay of your choice. I bet you're doing good work, whether that's your actual day job or your passion project. I bet it's coming out great. And if you are working on it, I don't know, you can also put that in a comment too. Let me know. But I'll see everybody on the next wave. Bye!